So, welcome to Charleston, South Carolina. This is a trip that I've wanted to do for a long time. It's one of the most beautiful small towns in the entire world, and I wanted to use that as an introduction to today's topic, which is the dark side of human nature. How do we acknowledge it? How do we come to terms with it and understand it so that we can live in a world where there is a dark side to our fellow human beings? And then at the same time, how can we forgive ourselves, and how do we get by day to day in this dark side? Now, this has come up in many ways because I teach a lot of social dynamics. I teach a lot of social skills. And when you elevate your social status, you will bring a lot of people around you who love what they see about you. You'll make genuine friends, genuine connections. You'll meet new romantic partners who you connect with on a very, very powerful level. But you'll also experience it to where you bring around you the wrong people. People who are around you because they want to get something from you simply because you've raised your status. And this is something that can be very, very painful for you if you're studying the topic of social dynamics, because what you might experience is that you raise in your status, and then you get people around you who want things from you and who wind up abandoning you or even doing nasty, horrible, horrible exploitative things to you at any point where maybe it benefits them, or maybe they fail to see your continued value in their life. So in today's video, if you've ever had a situation where you met someone special, maybe someone romantic in your life, and they abandon you or stab you in the back, or maybe you had a great friend and they blew you off, or maybe you helped someone to build their company or build their enterprise and they really let you down. Maybe you just walked down the street and people just acted badly. This video is going to get you thinking about why that happens. It's going to help you to forgive others for that. It's going to help you to forgive it in yourself, because it's something that we all have, and give you a lot of direction on how to move forward. So in my 5th year of high school, I decided to go and attend another school in the afternoon because I need to make up a couple credits. And I remember I had this idea in my head where I said, I'm going to act kind of loud and obnoxious and brash like the popular kids. And I get in my first class and I sit beside the most attractive girl, and her and I wind up having chemistry because I'm acting like this. Now, I couldn't act like this in my previous school because I had so many years with these other kids that it felt too much outside of my identity. But in a new school, I could act however I want. Great lesson for you there. If you want to act more cool, try going to a city that you've never been to before. And if you do that, you can actually break out of your typical identity. It's actually something I also did to learn to get better socially. I would actually travel to different cities and go out in bars and clubs in different cities. I did this for years. It really, really helped me. So I meet this girl, and I later find out she has a boyfriend. But a few months in, her boyfriend frustrates her, and she says, Owen, I want to go hang out with you tonight. I want to go see a movie with you. So I pop back by my house, funny enough. I had to get my wallet. And she comes in, we start to fool around. I'd never really fooled around with a girl that much before. And she tells me that her boyfriend's this big jerk, and that's why she's fooling around with me. And she feeds this to me, and I take it hook, line, and sinker, this story about what a jerk her boyfriend is. And now we're really fooling around. So she tells me that she wants to be my girlfriend. We're going to be a couple. And I'm actually pretty excited about it. So I go home, all excited, and we talk over the phone on the weekend. We get all romantic with each other over the weekend. And then on Monday, I see her. She comes up to me, she kisses me, and then I go to the cafeteria, I buy her an ice cream. It was a drumstick. And she takes the ice cream, she starts eating it, and then her boyfriend comes in, and with all this ice cream in her mouth, she leans over to him with all this ice cream in her mouth and starts tonguing down her boyfriend. Now I'm frustrated because I'm thinking, first of all, what happened? I thought he was this big jerk. Why is she making out with this guy? I don't get it. Why is she making out with this big jerk? I thought he's a bad guy. But worst of all, why is she taking my ice cream and putting it in this guy's mouth. I'm like, I want that back. Like, you take that ice cream on your tongue and out of his tongue, you put that back in there, and you give it back. I did not just buy ice cream for your boyfriend to lick off of. You know, I'm younger at this point. This is the paradigm I'm thinking of at the time. And my mind was just shocked by this. Well, guess what happened? A few months later, her and this guy get in a fight again. She calls me up, and we wind up becoming a couple. We moved to a different college town together, move in together, and we're a couple for about a year and a half or so. Now, the entire time that we're together, I could remember that weird incident. And because I remember that incident, I was always a little bit withdrawn from her. I was a little bit sketched out by it. But after about a year and a half, she'd proven so loyal, I thought, man, how can you hold against her what she did a year and a half ago? That's not who she is. I gotta start treating this girl a lot better. So I started treating her really well. And after I started treating her really well, of course, what happened? Well, she lost interest. So once she lost interest, she starts going out, not coming home. And it turned out that she's hooking up with the manager of the pita pit. She was working at the pita pit, and they're hooking up. I was devastated. But here's what devastated me more than being cheated on. Because in many ways I had that coming for fooling around with her at the time when she had a boyfriend. Here's what messed me up. Here's the key. And this was something that I saw repeated from other people in my life for decades after, okay? I'm 40 this week, and I think I was around 21, 22 at this time. So I've seen this for almost 20 years. This has never stopped. And I'm gonna teach you, first of all, what happened, share the story, but then I'm gonna explain to you what this phenomenon is. So she's sitting there talking to me, explaining how we're breaking up. I ask her what's going on, and she starts listing out all these weird different incidents that, while being true, were completely obscure. She says to me at one point, Owen, 6 months ago, I asked you if I look good, and you didn't tell me that I look good. And I said, what? When? What? Yeah, 6 months ago, I asked you if I look good, and you didn't compliment me, and I felt hurt. And you just didn't pay enough attention to me. I wanted to play a board game with you once, and you wouldn't play, Monopoly or whatever it was with me. And all these obscure things start coming into focus. I said, what about when I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this? I don't get it. How could you be remembering that? She goes, I don't care about that stuff. You just do that because you're selfish. Baby, what are you talking about? I love you. I don't understand. Why are you focusing on this stuff? Why are you going out with this guy from the pita pit? I don't understand. What's happening? And it was as if all the good things that had happened were kind of wiped out of her mind, erased, but all of the bad things were kind of pushed to the forefront. And all that she could remember were the bad things. It was almost as if her biology was tricking her mind to put these bad things to the surface so that she could justify leaving me. And I just wanted my girlfriend back at this point. I'd made myself vulnerable. I just wanted my girlfriend back. Why did she do this? And I begged for her to come back. Please, please, baby, I don't care what happened. It's my fault. I'm the one that made you cheat. I'm the bad one. I shouldn't have made you cheat. It's just terrible that I did that. So up until this point in my life, I've had a lot of pain. And in having a girlfriend for the first time, that was the first time in my life when the pain finally went away. There was this kind of refrigerator hum of being ill at ease in the world. And suddenly when being intimate with somebody, that feeling was medicated for a little bit. And all of a sudden, when she decided to leave me, I was in so much pain that at first I tried to play Mr. Tough Guy and cool and saying, oh, okay, well, if you cheat on me, I'm out of here. But when I realized that nobody else was gonna have me, and that it could be many years until I met somebody else, I started rationalizing, making up excuses for what she'd done, and begging for her to come back. So at that time, I would say to her over and over, tell me what I did wrong, I completely forgive you, I just want you to come back. And she would start telling me what I did wrong. And of course she loved this because this was a great opportunity for her to completely take the responsibility off of herself and put it on me for the fact that she cheated. So one of the things that she said was, you don't play board games with me enough. And I can remember sitting there just going through this terribly boring board game, playing it, and sitting there pretending that I'm into playing cards and board games, and thinking maybe at some point she's going to take me back if I just play this board game. But what's crazy about this, and here's what was happening, this is very important to understand for your own life, was that A, because I took somebody back who cheated on me, and B, or at least I was trying to, begging for them back, by the way. They wouldn't even take me back. That's how crazy this got. But B, because now I'm even playing board games and card games that I don't want to play at all, which, to be fair, I think that's a dicey area because there could be a justification to play a card game with someone. It's not making it sound pretty bad. But when you add to the fact that A, someone's cheating on you, and then B, you're doing something that you don't even want to do to try to get them to take you back, what was happening was, if you have this little bowl that is holding the fluid of your self-esteem or your self-love inside it, that bowl is cracking because that bowl is your personal boundaries. So you've got to have boundaries against things like being cheated on, if that's the agreement in your relationship. Depends what kind of relationship you have. You could have a different arrangement. But, you know, if you agreed not to cheat, and that bowl is cracking, and now you start begging somebody back and taking the blame and lying by taking the blame, your sense of self-esteem is going to be going down the drain. At that point, as I'm feeling myself just completely going down the drain and losing myself, I go lower and lower into the pits of hell. And at this point, I'm just walking through the streets completely empty. Finally, she winds up leaving, and I'm in this total, complete pit of despair for months. I start failing out of school, and I'd gotten into a great school. So look at what's happened to me here. For most of my life was really bad. I get into this incredible school, Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, in Canada. You've never heard of it, but in Canada, it's a big deal. And so what happened was, I've got this good school, I've got this good girlfriend, and I'm just watching this just get completely torn apart. And I'm just going into a downward spiral. So I fail out of school. You know, eventually I went back and finished my BA, my undergrad, but basically just failing out of school. I couldn't go to grad school anymore. My life streamed down the drain. Lost my girlfriend, completely alone. And I just sit there, stuck in my house for months. This dark pit probably lasted for about, 6 or 12 months or something like that. And every single day I would wake up and I would just try to go back to sleep. I'd think, maybe if I could just go back to sleep, this will go away. So I would sleep like 18 hours. Or then other days I couldn't even sleep at all. And the pain and the trauma was just there and there and there. And I keep waiting for this to go away, but, Hi. Hey. Didn't happen, okay? It just didn't happen. My reality, let's say that I walked by people back then, was terror. I was afraid of people. I had no way out of this. So I started learning how to be social. And I made it my life's mission to learn how to talk to people, to learn how to network, make friends, learn how to date. That was my mission in life. So in doing this and beginning to learn how to approach people and talk to them and be social, I started to find some kind of free from this. And I started to think, you know what, maybe my ship has finally arrived. I messed up my school, eventually finished it, but messed up going to grad school. I messed up my relationship, but at least I learned this cool new skill. At least I can finally get out of this. But at that point, I started to realize that this thing that I'd seen, this phenomenon that I'd seen, was actually pretty pervasive. Because I start going out to bars and clubs, and I'm seeing a huge amount of infidelity. I'm having situations where, maybe I'm talking to someone, and their significant other's right there, and next thing you know, they grab my head and start making out with me, and I'm thinking, your significant other's right there. I don't understand. What's happening? Why do I keep seeing this? And I'm seeing this everywhere, all the time. So at that point, I started to think, maybe that's just how it is, right? I'm a guy. Guys are innocent. The men are innocent. But look what they're doing, is what I started to feel in my youth. But here's where the story gets really interesting. And this is where this takes a turn from what you've heard before about this kind of thing. Because I bet you've heard the kind of things that I'm saying a lot, but here's what you might not have heard. What I then noticed was that as I built my business, because I started coaching people and built my business, there was a lot of men around me. And the men who I hired into my company at that time wound up doing the exact same thing that my girlfriend had done. No difference whatsoever. Exact same thing. So I remember at one point, I hired this new instructor. This was way before social media ever existed. You've never heard of this guy. And love this guy. Now, when I say that I love this guy like a brother. Honestly, if we'd been going down this street right here and there was a car about to hit him, I would have jumped in front and taken it for him on principle. I would have taken a knife in my neck for this guy. There was a bullet, someone pointing it, I would have jumped my head in front of it. Taught this guy everything I knew. Taught him how to meet people, talk to people, taught him how to get to a high level in that, taught him how to coach, taught him how to public speak, traveled him around the world with me. It was amazing. We had a lot of fun. We were bros. And funny enough, this was back when I was really broke. So most of my money that I could have been making by me doing coaching, I would even give him my students and my clients so that he could coach, just so that I could have friends. What was I doing there? It's not even his fault, to be honest. I was basically buying friends. You tell someone, I'm going to teach you everything I know. I'm going to fly around the world. Who's not going to take that? That's called buying friends. The truth is that guy probably would not have been friends with me if I wouldn't have been doing that. But at the time I didn't know that. I just thought I was super cool. So what happened was, because we were pretty broke, at that point in the company, this was 2004, everybody would do different jobs. So he said, in addition to teaching, could you help us do accounting? And here's the best part, you're going to love the story. He goofs up the accounting, and he thinks that we're in debt by $90,000. He's wrong, but he thinks we're in debt by $90,000 by his faulty accounting. And so he gets it in his head that the company is going to go bankrupt. Now, this is so bizarre. At the time, I was saying, maybe instead of just teaching social skills, we could also do image consulting. And I'd mentioned that, and he thought this was, I was really excited about it, so he thought this was like the cutting edge idea. So what he does, he leaves the company, and when he's leaving, I start asking him, why are you leaving? Why are you doing this? And it was exactly like with my ex-girlfriend, where it was like his mind had erased every single good thing that had ever happened. His brain had erased it. This man's brain had erased what happened. Notice here, this is a human being thing. This is not a man or woman thing. This is something that human beings do. It's related to value. It's part of our DNA to survive and reproduce. You can look this up, The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. So he starts saying all these things to me that I've done wrong. You did this wrong, you did this wrong. I'm trying to think of what they were. We're teaching some program one time and you ran off with somebody, or just bringing up all this stuff. Had never brought it up before. Certainly before he knew how to coach anybody, certainly before he'd built a brand through my organization, certainly before I'd spent 2 years spoon feeding him everything I knew, he wasn't mad. But now all of a sudden when he could leave, he was mad. And he believed what he was saying. So the fact that he was leaving didn't bother me. I could live with that. If someone wants to go, go. I don't care. But when you go, why do you have to like make up all this stuff? And of course I know why. It's because we've got a great organization and people are going to come up to him and say, why'd you leave? And he can't just say, look, I left. Look, I left. Owen treated me good and I left. He can't just say that. So he's got to make an excuse. He's got to justify it in his mind. That was what bothered me. I would have still been his friend for life. I would have always been friends with him. I didn't care. That was my brother. If he wants to, if you've got a real brother and they want to do something else, go do it. Go for it. And now he's just running around telling everybody what I've done wrong. And what that did was it re-triggered me, okay? Because I got a girlfriend to try to get out of pain. And it worked temporarily. And then the pain came back 1,000x when she left me, and she did that thing where she erased all the good times and focused on the bad times. So then I learned how to get a skill set in being social. I learned how to go socialize with people, but I wound up seeing a lot of really shady, unethical behavior. I wound up seeing a lot of infidelity, and it made me feel more alienated from the world. Then what happened was I started going out and trying to make friends. And in making friends, I'm thinking, well, at least if I make some friends, at least that will give me some reprieve. So I go build this organization to where I think that I can make friends more easily. But what winds up happening? I don't make any more friends. I just wind up attracting people for the wrong reason into my life. I wind up attracting the wrong friendships, platonic friendships, and partnerships. Well, why is that happening? What's going on? The biggest thing that freaked me out, it wasn't losing people from my life. I can live with that. People come and go. It was the fact that they took our history and just erased it, just wiped it out. It's like it never happened. And so in my mind, I'm feeling like, did the last 2 years happen? Like, is the last 2 years of my life a complete waste? Is the last couple years of my life me feeding energy into somebody? And then as far as they're concerned, it never even happened? So I tried to be healthy about it. I started examining myself. Like, why is this happening to me again and again? Is it me? And I would say in some parts, probably yes, because everybody has flaws. And I'd say that after a lot of self-reflection, I could see areas that I was causing it. I probably was late that time, or, didn't give the attention to my ex-girlfriend that one time. It's probably all very true. But at the same time, there was another aspect that was going on. Here's what it was. And this is something you're going to deal with if you're raising your social status. So you got to be aware of this. What was happening, in effect, I'm raising my social status in a way that is not completely stable. And so as my social status is raising up in this weird artificial way, I'm generating these social responses that I normally wouldn't be able to get. Let's have a look at this. Let's break this down a little bit further. Say that you're somebody who has low status beta mannerisms. You come across like a beta, low status. And then you work really hard to come across an alpha as high status. Well, how do you do that? Maybe you go approach a lot of people, you build up a lot of momentum. By the end of the night, with all these approaches that you're doing, you're feeling so good, you're feeling confident, alpha. You attract a certain quality of person. But the next day, when you're not in that momentum, what happens? You become a little bit beta again. And so you generate that attraction in the person by being more high status, but the next day you haven't sustained it. By the way, in saying that, did you notice around 2004, 2005, 2006, I switched a lot of what I'm teaching to be more natural? That's the reason why, if you want to know. Secret revealed. That's why I did that. Because I was seeing all these crazy responses. I couldn't believe it. So that's part of it. That's as far as attracting somebody. But even in business, what could happen is that you build your business for a bit, and if you bring somebody else in and you're giving away your value that you have, at first it's like they love you and they're your friend, and later, when that value runs out, something happens mentally. And this is really that kind of nasty side of human nature that we have as human beings that we have to become aware of, or we're going to mess this world up. And what I call it is an RAS flip. RAS is reticular activation system. And what that is it's selective focus. Selective focus, so if you see the full picture, what here are you focusing on? If I say, what is gray, what is gray, what is gray? You close your eyes, and then I say, what's brown? You don't know, because you thought that gray has the value. So what happens is that our selective focus, our RAS, it messes with us. It goofs us around, and it makes it to where we perceive things very, very selectively. And here's the deal of an RAS flip. In an RAS flip, what happens is that when you have the value, when you're attractive to somebody, whether that's because of your alpha behavior, so they're attracted to you, maybe physically attracted, or when you have a business and you have money, maybe you become a celebrity overnight, and you have a certain amount of value, well, if that's going up, the person's RAS sees you in one way. You get what's called a halo effect. And the halo effect makes them see you in a positive light. But if for any reason that goes away, maybe you were acting like an alpha before, and now you act like a beta. Maybe your business was actually something they could benefit from, but now they've basically just taken everything you do and they could do it themselves. They don't need you anymore. Whatever it is. And basically what you have is this RAS flip begins to rationalize. It's like when you see that kid in the World Vision commercial starving, but the kid's from another country. So what do you care if it's not part of your tribe? When in reality, that's another human being, but you'll block it out. This is what our reticular activation system does. And it creates these RAS flips. And anytime that you're trying to improve yourself, whether that's building a business or working on your social skills, you're going to be experiencing situations where people are going to have RAS flips on you. And they're going to love you one minute, and they're going to hate you the next. And you're going to see it where you've put a lot into something, and they're going to remember it completely differently. Funny enough, you think about those situations, you actually can learn from them, because they're going to tell you everything you did wrong, and some of that stuff's going to be true. They're going to pick things that are true. The part where they're lying is context. They're going to pick apart little things that are true, just like you could pick apart little aspects of this video that you don't like. 100% you could. But the question is that the whole picture? And if it's not, then what they're doing is they're justifying and rationalizing with that RAS flip. hard video to make because these are very, very personal issues for me. And I feel dumb talking about this because the impression that I could leave pretty easily is me venting. And for that reason, I've never made videos specifically about this stuff before. I think I've mentioned the Pita Pit story, but I don't really like to talk about these issues because for me, if I hear somebody making a video about this topic, I just think they're venting. In the case of my friend from many years ago, who was one of my best friends I would have taken a bullet for, that happened in 2004. So I'm recording this almost towards 2020. And as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, okay, 2020, 2004, all right, you know, it's had room to breathe. But generally speaking, whenever I do have an incident, even things that can melt down in the public, I usually won't talk about it for a good decade. I remember when the book The Game came out, had about 200 pages in it, just, just going in there. And it was about a decade before I would even address it at all. Because one thing I've learned is that, end of the day, losers and whiners, they just lose and they just whine. You've got to win. You've just got to win. So you might have seen things that have been kind of tossed my way and thought, man, that's really brutal for Owen. But notice that not a single time do you ever see me sitting there kind of staring at my navel feeling sorry for myself. Instead, what my goal was not to try to scream to the skies that it's not my fault or, you know, scream to the public that there's another side of things. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to play that game. What I did instead was try to understand what was happening and then to work within that framework. So I've seen it where guys will come to me and they'll talk about, say, their dating issues. And maybe they'll start to blame the opposite sex. And I'm saying, are you out of your mind? You think this is an opposite sex issue? What do you think they would say about us? If you're in a room full of them, the stuff that we're doing, what do you think they would say? This is not a gender issue. It's a human issue that sometimes we can act poorly. My main thing, number one, was I didn't want to get jaded. I didn't want to become one of those people that would say, the dark reality, oh, boo-hoo-hoo, and make it an excuse. I want to be a winner. I want to be somebody who understands that if we have these RAS flips, well, hey, simple question. How do you make the RAS flip for the positive then? How do you make it where this RAS flip thing is the best thing ever because you understand how to just create a positive RAS flip? That's what I asked myself. And that is what I would recommend that you ask yourself, is simply, how can I understand what an RAS flip is better, and then how can I make it work? So I'm leading into this next section about understanding it better and being proactive right here in front of this pineapple water fountain here in Charleston. And it's a cute little fountain with water just kind of flowing through it. And in many ways, when I talked at the beginning of this video about how our version of a reality is a lot like an extension, even as adults, of the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus. Our Santa Claus or Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, as adults, is that a human being, you know, Chris or Peter or Samantha, whoever, is what you see on the surface. Is somebody who thinks clearly and rationally about everything. And that we, ourselves, that you are just Fred or Amy. And that's who you are. And that you're always rational. And that you're not experiencing these exact same RAS flips. See, the way that I came to forgive people was every time that I saw somebody else having an RAS flip and rationalizing being really horrible, I said, where do I do that? Where's that point where, you know, I throw the garbage out on the side of the street, or I do something selfish, or I don't think about an issue clearly. Maybe I have bias towards an issue. Where's my version of that? So the first two recommendations as I lead into this that I have for you is, first of all, don't be on the losing team. Saying, oh, I feel bad, that just means you're a loser. Be the winner who uses that RAS flip to make better relationships than ever. And understand that, we're going to explain that here. But also, even more important than that, is every single time that you see somebody behaving in a manner that's unfair or having that RAS flip, say to yourself, where is mine? Where is my RAS flip? Where am I doing that? That may be my single best habit that I have, is every time I see somebody screwing up, I know that I can take the cheap ego kick and go, I don't do that. I'm so cool. I'm great. Look how dumb they are. Look how great I am. And instead I say, we're all one. They're human. I'm human. If they do that, where do I? And I've seen this very much in communities that focus on being mad at other people or, mad at some other group. And I think you are so ridiculous because you're doing the same thing. And then what'll happen is that people in those angry communities, they'll start bickering amongst themselves. I go, see, told you, you guys, your little tribe, you're doing this to each other. It's called human nature. Remember this, during the World Trade Center 9/11 bombings, there were people running into that building to save other people. There's people who go into war to fight for their country. There's mothers and fathers every day that fight for their children, for their neighborhood, for their community, and people that have incredible self-sacrifice. I bet you've done amazing things that I would never know to help people. My great passion in what I've done is the free content that I give in my free events. So if that's the case, yes, human beings, we invented the internet, the computer, the phone, the cameras, that you're using this to watch this content right now. We have a worthy side to us, a beautiful side, a brilliant side, a heroic side, a selfless side. We have that. I truly believe that almost everybody has that. But we also have another side to us too. And to me, real spiritual growth isn't making a fairy world where we say, everyone's a fairy. It's all so perfect. Why do you need to say that to love the world? Why can't you see the world in all of its different dimensions, the duality that is a part of the world, and find it to be beautiful anyway? You can see two animals ripping each other apart and say, that is the world. That's the cycle of life. You can still see a beauty in that, even if it's disgusting and repulsive. Understand that your consciousness is housed upon DNA. And this DNA that evolves is what created everything that you see around you. The different species of plants, animals, and human beings. So anytime that you resist this, you're resisting life. You're fighting life. And instead we want to flow with life. So that first habit, anytime that you see somebody who's in an RAS flip, they're rationalizing, they're being selfish and rearranging reality to justify themselves and believing it. And rearranging history, maybe a history that you have with them, and believing it. Love them anyway. Love them anyway. It's fine. In my case, I never even spoke a word back. Simply, my goal was to see where I could improve it, understand it better. I want to be the bigger person. And in doing that, it forced me on these better habits. So instead of taking the easy out, if somebody would say crap talking me in ways that are complete BS, and running onto the internet or screaming to the heavens, that's not true. I said to myself, why don't I use that as motivation to just do better, to understand this RAS flip thing, and to trigger those RAS flips in a more positive direction. And if there's anything they said that was correct, just take it and do better. That was my main goal. And let me tell you, zipping it, that's tough. That is hard. But I said to myself early on when I could see this was happening, I'm not going to carry anger. I'm not going to be jaded. I'm not going to stop dating or having new romantic partners. I'm not going to stop making friends. I'm not going to stop working with people. I'm not going to stop creating new instructors. Even though every bit in me was screaming, no more new instructors, because that's what they're going to do. I don't want to date anybody. I don't want a real relationship. I don't want friends, because that's what they're going to do. That's how I felt. I felt that screaming at me. Do you understand? I felt that too. It's not just you. We all feel it. You're not unique. But your life is short. And so when you feel it, you can run around screaming to the heavens about your side of it. Or you could say to yourself, how do I understand reticular activation system better? How can I forgive more? Many times, even in losing a bit of reputation, you gain spiritually. See, let me ask you a question. If I crap talk you right now, and you say, that's not true, does that make you feel more at peace? Or can you be the space for that? Can you take that in? Can you take that in and stay present? Can you not allow the negative low vibration energy that wants to infect you to take root and make you hate? And instead, can you love other people and forgive them and give them space to grow? Let me tell you something. 90%, maybe even close to 100 of anybody who's ever given me a hard time in the past will come to me later and say, I'm so sorry, because they grow. And if they don't, feel even more poorly for them. Do you understand? So give them the space to grow. Your main thing is not to be infected with that and not to become jaded. Your main thing is to become bigger than that, better than that, and more powerful. To accept the world exactly as it is. And so that was my journey. That's what I set out to do. And to do that, what I had to basically come to was I had to understand what an RAS flip is, how we as human beings are completely delusional, can be selfish, we have selective focus, and then to learn how to structure my personal relationships in such a way that it was triggering it for the positive. I'm not perfect with this, but I've got it down to a really good level. So I know what you're thinking. After that impassioned speech, how do you do it? I think we'll keep walking through Charleston right now, and I'm going to explain to you how we do this, because there's ways of doing it, and people that get this, that understand it on a high level, you trust me, they crush it with this. So right off the bat, like I said, just like with this fountain here, people's perception is like water. They're moving all the time. Even if you did everything that you're supposed to, that doesn't mean that they're going to do what they're supposed to. Their reticular activation system is being manipulated and moderated by evolution. Understand that. What have we learned when we read books like The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins? If you have not at least skimmed that, do at least a good power skim of The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. What you basically learn is that energy is always trying to take from other energy for itself, right? Now, if you have any doubt about this, what I would recommend to you is go watch Planet Earth or Blue Planet or Planet Earth 2. And these are beautiful, beautiful nature movies. And go look at what fish are doing to each other in the ocean. I mean, if you watch, say, Blue Planet, what are you watching? You're literally just watching this fish eats this fish, eats this fish, eats this fish. It's just a bunch of fish murdering each other. The ocean is like this giant pit of mass murder, and apparently plastics. More delusion, right? That's okay. To make the plastic island in the ocean of microplastics and mercury, right? Our dark side. We got to work on it. Remember I said, this is of global importance. We got to work on this stuff. We're going to be in trouble. We got to get past this. That's why this is important, what we're talking about here. Okay, and why I'm willing to share some of these stories that just kind of make me sound like a freaking victim. But I want to show you it's personal to me, okay? I get it, what you're dealing with here. So, if you watch Planet Earth, you know, these animals are all eating each other, right? Joe Rogan talked about this in a comedy that he did. He said, I think he said like the plants grow, and then the dumb stuff eats the green stuff, and then the mean stuff eats the dumb stuff, was basically what he said, okay? It's the food chain, cycle of life. Everything's just eating each other. And even as a human being, there's little microscopic little viruses and things trying to eat you. I mean, think about this. My understanding, and this could be wrong, but this is my understanding, is that the reason why we even need to reproduce is because there's these little parasites and viruses that will begin to understand how our immune system works and kills us. So we have to keep reproducing ourselves so that these little things don't kill us. Everything's trying to kill everything else. It's crazy. You know what we see happening. So, understand that. What do we do about that? Well, if you think human beings are that different, I got news for you. You're not that different. That predator animal that you just see killing everything, eating everything, you're not that different than that. Even if you're a vegan, your DNA is telling you to be like that. But we live in a civilized, cooperative society where on the surface, everybody is, trying to get along and whatnot. But then you look in traffic, people are cutting each other off, honking at each other, screaming at each other, frustrated, all this stuff. It's the world that we live in. People are fighting in court over this or that, having disagreements. I've seen it in my own business, begging people, please stop attacking each other, please. Spending years on this. And they just want to fight each other And they both believe they're right because they're RESs. I'm right. The more intelligent and confident the person, the more that they believe they're right oftentimes too. Sometimes you're too smart for your own good. You come up with all these reasons. You know, I could bash my head against the wall. Try and deal with this. This is humanity. It's who we are. The question is, what you gonna do about it? You gonna sit there jaded and just go, we should all just walk the plank. Humans are crap. You can try that. Well, what's the difference with the animals? They're all gonna kill each other too, right? And so understand that your brain, your mind wants to rationalize that you're this nice person. And it's gonna make you act in nasty, messed up ways that are to the evolutionary advantage of your DNA. It's gonna do that. That was why, you know, I'm like 22 years old. First I get dumped. My girlfriend's telling me that I'm so bad and awful. I can't figure out why. Well, she's had an RAS slip because her evolution made her do this. I start going out to nightclubs. Got people I'm meeting with their significant other jumping on me, dragging me off to the bathroom, jamming their tongue down my throat with their significant other right there. What's going on? Later I got Instagram. Half the time I exchange Instagrams with people, I go look at their profile. They're riding a double bike off to a honeymoon with a kid or something. What are you doing with me? It is. I see that in the profiles. It's crazy, the things I see. What's going on? It's evolution. And here's the problem, or the challenge, let's say. It's a challenge. Say positive. The challenge is that thing that makes you survive and adaptive is telling you to do that, right? Think about this for a minute. This is pretty important what I'm going to tell you. I need you to really think about this. I need you to have some clarity on this, okay? The animals that didn't have that mechanism to be selfish got weeded out. You see this? If your grandparents didn't do this, they'd be more likely to be weeded out. It's crazy. So, if in evolution is rewarding for being adaptive and for being selfish. So that means that we have these tendencies. The animals or human beings that didn't have it were more likely to be weeded out. Also, how do you think that the gene pool gets better? The gene pool gets better because people want to reproduce with those that are of higher value, right? If we didn't have that, we'd all be like this tall right now and like, we wouldn't have good genetics. So you could be mad about the issue, but I'll tell you right now, do you want to be a foot tall? Do you want to have everything in you genetically just malfunctioning? And even if it is right now, because we all did, you know, none of us are perfect. You don't want it to be worse than it is, right? So this is the genetic heritage that we have. Once you understand that about human beings, that this personality that you're seeing on the surface is in effect a facade, once you get that and you know that that's what you're relating with, here's what you'll basically get. Something like 90% of what's running them is that evolutionary aspect. The DNA is selfish. And then it's manipulating their perception all the time and making them rationalize. But then there's also, and here's what's so cute, it's very cute, there's actually a part of them that is legitimately there talking to you, that cares about you. And it's being housed and it's being propped up by that DNA. That DNA, it's almost like Krang. You ever see the Ninja Turtles Krang? There's like this big robot body and like this little brain housed in this big shell. The DNA, the body, that's the shell holding the consciousness there for the person. So when I have a friend, somebody who I work with, a significant other, someone I'm dating, business partner, a buddy, I understand that our actual connection is in many ways a lot more tenuous than you'd realize, but that also makes it beautiful, because trapped inside of our respective bodies and brains and DNA, we're like these two consciousnesses that are trying to connect to each other through this. I mean, that's intense. I mean, think about it right now. Think of me as this like selfish little puke, and you're this selfish little puke, and our bodies are just like trying to fight and survive like a tree or like a fish in the ocean. But then through this crazy miracle, we have consciousness. Human beings, we have consciousness. And we're like a little bit conscious. Now, we're not the fairy tale, this silly, ridiculous fairy tale that we were told. I'm not the Easter Bunny. You're not Santa Claus, right? We know that. I understand that the tooth fairy doesn't exist. And I understand that people's perceptions of what another human being is limited. They're completely in a fairy world. It's crazy what they think. They need that, many of them. They need to be told that because they can't live with the full truth. It hurts too much. Just like, you needed to believe that your tooth that really hurt to fall out was going to get compensated for by a fairy. You needed to believe that to get by. There's a lot of things that we need to believe to be able to psychologically cope with reality. But why not see the totality of reality, that we're connecting right now? This vague little tentative connection that our minds will barely even retain it. You'll watch this video and in a month from now, you'll barely even remember what you saw. All you'll remember is a bit of what you felt and a couple main points. I know that as a teacher, by the way. That's why I've gotten a lot better as a teacher over the years. I know how to kind of wire stuff in there, whether you remember or not. And I've worked really hard on this. But we're connecting right now, me and you. Right now. We're connecting. It's amazing. So, if I'm meeting someone to date, yeah, I know that they have that evolutionary aspect. The men have it, the women have it. Now, both the men and women will complain about the version the other have, to be tribalistic and be mad at each other. I don't believe in that. I believe in coming together. But see, I want people to really come together. I love that. And this was something that I wanted before it was trendy. It's gotten to the point that people are so much trying to show their virtue that I don't even feel as comfortable saying that anymore. But ever since I got into this, my goal was to bring people together. So my thought, though, is rather than having a fairy tale, just talk about what it is that we are and who we are, understand ourselves, and then we can really come together. That's amazing. And that's what the world needs. Carry no anger. Let the anger out of your heart. Have compassion for the fact that we are connecting through these evolutionary bodies and minds that we have. And instead, just understand what it is that you need to do. So what do you need to do? How could I have kept my friend? What I could have done was, first of all, provided more future opportunity. I could have understood what meant more future opportunity. I could have discussed that. I could have made a plan, got him to buy in about the cool things that we're gonna do together. But I failed to do that. Instead, I told him to go do my accounting, didn't monitor it, and then he thought that we were 90 grand in debt. So his RAS wigged out. Well, it's the same thing. If you have a significant other and your business isn't doing well, don't talk to them about it. Don't use them as your emotional tampon. You're gonna wig out their RAS. Don't do that. Don't do that. Stop. It's not your emotional tampon. It's not your therapist. Stop. Don't do that. You're taking their RAS, you're scrambling it up. Not appropriate. If you start to go broke with your business and your partner leaves you, that was your fault. Well, no, they should just say, why? There's evolution there. And now I know you're gonna say, no, they should just say, stop. Stop. Understand. You've got to make a separation. Here's the separation. And once you get this, it'll be everything, okay? You will let this go. Let me ask you this. We know each other now. We've gotten to know each other. Hopefully you think I'm cool. I think you're cool too. Let me ask you an honest question. As much as you enjoy hearing about these stories that I've shared and getting to know me personally and bonding, if I were to offer you $100 million right now to not hear these stories or to be my friend, would you take it? What if I offered you $1 billion? What if I said you could have superpowers and you could fly? What if I said that you had a magic wand to date whoever you want for the rest of your life? No, we can't be friends anymore. What's the price at which you wouldn't be my friend anymore? Right? So, Think about that for a sec. There's basic level bonding, but there's also what the DNA needs. We live in a physical reality, right? So if I'm somebody's boss, yeah, I'm gonna be friends with them. We're gonna be great friends. We're gonna joke around, hang out, bond, go to dinner. I'm literally about to take my camera team out for dinner to a restaurant called Fig right after this. We're gonna have a great time. But I could even ask my camera team shooting this right now, and I'm gonna mess his head a little bit. At what point would you skip the Fig dinner and skip us hanging out because maybe I got you a raise and was paying you $5 million a year? Would you take the $5 million a year in exchange for us not getting to bond? There's no harm in saying yes. He's just walking. Where's that point? And that's because at a certain point, you've got to separate general bonding and a kinship with somebody's survival needs. So if you have a romantic partner and they like you because you're alpha and you start acting beta, you're messing with their survival needs. If you have a team member and you allow them to have the wrong belief that you're $90,000 in debt, and you never discuss any future opportunities so that their RAS will keep saying, wait a minute, we should keep doing stuff together. There's future positive opportunities for growth. If you fail to do that, again, their RAS is gonna get messed up. So the general formula, what you wanna do is you wanna get to a point where you're always showing the person's RAS, to stay bought into that relationship, okay? That is something that's synergistic. You gotta show them that, discuss it, and exhibit it through behavior that's hard to fake. Number two is you've got to discuss shared opportunities. You've got to get them to buy into a vision together. You've got to recruit them to that vision. And then number three is you've got to show that you've got it together, baby. You got it together. And if you can talk to someone, get them to buy into the vision, if you can get them to see that you've got it together and that you're someone who's good to be aligned with, and then you're also always having those future opportunities, their RAS is going to want to stick with you. It's going to want to stick around. But realize, we're sitting here in a city you got to visit. I mean, what a privilege it is to be here. I'm so excited to be here. But understand that even in this very city, maybe on this street right here, people did some of the most horrifying things to each other back in the times of slavery. Disgusting, unfathomable things. And we think, how could they have done that? That cruelty is the flip side of the coin in human nature to the beauty of our ability to invent things, to run in and rescue people. That's the flip side of it. And every human being in the world has both sides. So what does this mean for humanity? This means, as human beings, what we need to do is to recognize who we are and talk to each other. See what the other person's feeling. And see if that in mutual understanding and seeking first to understand, then to be understood, we can find win-wins together and not just be a bunch of crazed, savage animals at each other's throat and stabbing each other in the back. What's the other alternative if you don't think that's possible? Just forget everybody? Is that your alternative? Yeah? I would challenge that. What I would tell you is that you're scared. What I would tell you is that you are afraid of the complexities of learning that language. But what I tell you is you can. So for the final part of this video, and funny, I think I'm gonna take my team to Fig right now. We're gonna go eat a beautiful feast at Fig. And for the final part of this video, what I wanna do is I wanna teach you this concept of finding the win-win with other people. Finding out what it is that their DNA wants. And not just communicating with them at the Tooth Fairy Easter Bunny level, but communicating with them directly into what it is that their DNA wants. How to create buy-in with them and show that possibility for future growth that you could do together and synergistically. I want to further cement this idea that relating and having fun is different from someone's actual needs of their DNA. And how in cases where business and pleasure are mixing, whether that's a romantic relationship, which in effect is where people goof it up. It's not just your friend, that's part business, that's DNA business, right? But also in any aspect where there's a mixture between just fun relating and value exchange, I want to get you thinking further about that, because ultimately the challenge is when you're learning social skills, you're raising your value, right? When you're building a business, you're raising your value. But because you haven't fully gotten there yet, you get these weird mutant aberrations where someone loves you and hates you. You know, one minute they love you, another minute they hate you. Fake friends or people that are attracted to you for a minute, and they're talking as if you're soulmates. Next thing you know, they don't remember you exist. That's gonna happen. So let me take my team out for a bite. We'll come back in great spirits, and we'll wrap with how to get further and deeper into someone's mind to create that powerful bond, that synergy, that win-win, and to bring the best out of everybody that is that you meet. So over dinner, it just occurred to me that I was never bothered by any of this because I thought I couldn't handle it. And I mention this because I don't think you feel like you can't handle it. I think you know you can handle it, and I know I can handle it. It's more the lack of authenticity. It's the weirdness. It's that violation of expectations of what you thought life was about. And it kind of just makes you feel nauseated. It's not a nice feeling. So how do we fight through that inauthenticity? Well, it's like I've mentioned earlier in the video, it's not so much that we can't fight through it. We can definitely fight through it. It's that a lot of our motivations and reasons for living are getting messed with. The spiritual side, the thing that makes life great, where we feel like we're in a certain type of reality, is getting messed with. So the way that I like to think about it is that we've got to re-examine this entire narrative that we've been fed, this false, ridiculous narrative that it is, and we've got to stop making it into this bizarre fairy tale. Instead, what we've got to do is say to ourselves, human beings are no different than that giant tree right behind us. What do I mean by that? Well, look at this environment. This is a perfect metaphor for it. You've got a tree, it's growing, it's getting huge. That's the natural side of us. Then right behind us, you've got a courthouse. That is the mind aspect of who we are. And they can mess with each other, as we mentioned here. And then, as you see around us, this big fence, kind of like being in jail. You're stuck in this jail of nature and your rational mind and the way that they combine with each other. Once you realize this, the next thing you realize that a human being, like a plant, needs to grow. It's gonna grow. So if you're working with somebody and you're not facilitating their growth in the ways that we talked about here, what's gonna happen? It's like the plant hits up onto a wall and it's gonna break right through the wall. If you've become the wall, the plant, by necessity, will have to break through. And if you're somebody who's trying to contain the plant, you kind of suck. So don't be salty about it. Once you get this and you understand that it is a necessity for people to become all of what they can be and to get the most out of life, then what you'll look to do is to facilitate that rather than being somebody who holds it back and complains. In many ways, if you're threatened by the fact that people can behave in certain ways that seem bad, really, what's that saying? It means that you don't believe that you can defend yourself. You feel defenseless. You feel vulnerable. You feel like there's not a protection there. You feel like you're not somebody that people would come to in order to grow. Imagine if you're somebody at the top of the hierarchy and everybody wants to be around you, not because you're holding anybody back, but because they know that you're the best person to roll with. Well, this doesn't solve everything, does it? I understand that, because the truth is, this is a pretty broad topic, and there's a lot of really, really lame things that can happen. So I understand that. But we have to find some way to think positively about it. Once we get this, now we can start to bring out tools that will work in our favor. One of the incredible ones is what Stephen Covey said. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. I remember Stephen Covey, before he died, he said that the most important principle out of all of his 7 habits was to seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I thought about that a long time. I was thinking, why would Stephen Covey pick that one? There's so many better ones. I used to think that in my early 20s. What I realized over time was that Stephen Covey, in my view, could see that the world was in a little bit of trouble, and that we would need to begin to educate people to start to ask others what they're dealing with, to have empathy. One example that he gives, and I might be messing this up, but it's paraphrased, is that he's on a subway, and these 2 kids are just going crazy screaming. And he says to the parent, I think the mother, he says, "Can't you make these kids stop acting crazy on the subway that we're sharing?" And she said, "You know what? Their father died a month ago, and I haven't seen them smiling or playing in a month. And so I let them get a little bit out of hand." So what could look on one level to be selfish behavior not being considerate of other people. On the other hand, it could be something completely different once you ask. Now, to be fair, on the other hand, sometimes you ask and there is no answer. So it's a touching example. It's not going to cover every base. And I get that. I think what's important for us is to become expansive, to become bigger than these problems. That's what I took from it, to become bigger than them. To realize that life is really, really short, and not to let this kind of thing get us down. Had to be strong and expand. So a lot of what we've talked about here is base level biology, isn't it? If you think about it, it's base level biology. It's the autopilot aspect of the mind. And see, if you have not brought present energy and consciousness and expansiveness, if you've not connected to your higher power in some way and brought that positive energy, that high vibration energy into the world, then most likely you're running off of your biology. And if that's the case, you're contracted and you're going to be thinking through that basic level biology all the time. Now, what's crazy is that autopilot thinking is still there now. Now, how do we know this? Actually, it's pretty simple how we know it. If I tell you to stop thinking now and to get present to the moment, can you stop your mind from running on autopilot? Try it right now. Get present. Let's get present together right now. Don't think about the future. Don't think about the past. Connect to your breath. Can the thinking stop? Can you just be aware of your breath with me now? If you can, congratulations. There is some consciousness there. But if you can't, then what that means is that your brain is running on autopilot. You are not the thinker. Your brain is running on autopilot based on biological impulse. If that's the case, then these kinds of things, these delusions, are going to be gripping you and you don't even know it. This entire video, this entire seated session that you've had, standing on a bus, wherever you saw this past time that we spent together, you've been thinking that you're better than the people that act in some of these bad ways we're talking about. When in fact, if you can't even get present for a moment, you are probably as deep in those biological impulses and autopilots as anybody else. Maybe your autopilots are a little bit better, I'm not sure. Who knows? But the truth is, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't even know, because every single person that are acting in some of these bad ways, bad so to speak, they don't know either. They're rationalizing. And what makes you think you'd be any different? So that's why it's so important to learn tools like seek first to understand, then to be understood. We can learn about how to mediate between people and find common ground. The craziest part about when you seek first to understand what somebody else is thinking, you get into their mind, and 9 times out of 10, you empathize with them. They recruit you to their cause. And you want to find, as Stephen Covey would say, a win-win. Read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People if you haven't. It's a Bible of self-help. You've got to read it. This is a very, very beautiful soul that created this book. And when you combine that with different concepts of getting present to the moment and bringing in consciousness, and then you take that and you add in basic understandings of professionalism, of social dynamics, maybe the principles of going out and meeting people and attracting them, like how to use your voice, eye contact, body language, boundaries, self-amused humor, the things that we've been teaching you for years to come across having high status. So that person that you're meeting feels status coming from you in your essence and your behavior. You yourself are present and have tools in order to connect with other people. And you've learned elements of professionalism like managing expectations, learning what somebody else expects, and getting on the same page, recruiting them to a vision, and coming together to create something synergistic and powerful. When you combine these tools, this is how we get past the things we're talking about here. We don't get jaded, we don't give up. We don't give up on our fellow human beings. We transcend this. We take this as fuel to go to another level, which we can, and we have to. We're babies. We're little baby souls with a great destiny ahead of us. And we're learning here together. We're sharing. And we have great potential. We deserve a place on this earth. We've got a shot. And even the person coming from the worst place has a chance at redemption. So that's what I wanted to share with you here today. I want to share with you something beautiful to me, something that caused me great pain, and a way of thinking about it that helped me move to another level. I know you've been through a lot, and I'm sorry, we all have. That's the dimension that we're living in. But there's something more beyond this. And I want to take this journey with you. I want to come together with you. And we have to come together and make the world better. And that starts with making ourselves better. We have to represent the change that we want to see in the world. So thank you for being here with me in this beautiful night here in Charleston. Beautiful place, a place where bad things have happened, a place where beautiful things can happen and have happened. And I've got a lot more to come. We're in this together. And I'll talk to you soon. Peace.